Commander Vexhai stared at the view screen with growing excitement. The massive shape floating in the asteroid belt looked like nothing he had ever seen before. It was huge, easily 3 times the size of his flagship, but it moved like a dead thing. No lights, no energy signatures, no signs of life. "Another derelict, sir," reported Lieutenant Zara from the sensor station. "It's been drifting here for decades, maybe longer. The metal is old and covered in space dust." Vexhai smiled, showing his sharp teeth. The Zephyrian Empire was always looking for new technology to study and copy. Ancient ships often held secrets that could make the Empire even stronger. "Any signs of the species that built it?" "None, sir. The ship appears completely abandoned. I'm reading some strange markings on the hull, but they don't match any known language in our databases." Admiral Korthvan's voice crackled through the communication system from the fleet flagship. "Commander, what have you found?" "A large derelict vessel, Admiral. Unknown origin, but it looks promising for salvage operations. The technology might be worth studying." "Good, board it and see what you can find. These outer systems are full of dead civilizations. Another extinct species means more technology for us." Vexhai nodded and turned to his crew. "Prepare a boarding party. Full equipment. We don't know what kind of atmosphere or dangers might be waiting inside. And bring the portable analyzers. I want to know everything about this ship." 20 minutes later, Vexhai led a team of 12 soldiers across the dark space between the ships. Their magnetic boots clanked against the alien hull as they searched for an entrance. The metal felt strange under their feet, harder and denser than anything the Empire used. "Sir, look at these markings," called Sergeant Krall. He was standing next to symbols carved deep into the hull. The letters were alien but somehow seemed familiar. UES Prometheus Prototype 001 was written in large block letters. "What do you think UES means?" asked one of the younger soldiers. "Probably the name of their government or military," Vexhai replied. "And prototype suggests this was one of their first attempts at building ships like this. That could mean the technology is primitive. They found an airlock after several minutes of searching. The door was massive and looked incredibly strong. Sergeant Krall placed a cutting charge against it, but before he could activate it, the door suddenly hissed and began opening on its own." "That's impossible," whispered Lieutenant Mora. "The ship is supposed to be dead." Vexhai drew his plasma pistol. "Stay alert. Maybe some automated systems are still running." They stepped through the airlock into a corridor that stretched away into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on as they moved forward, creating pools of red light every few meters. The air was thin but breathable. Everything was covered in a layer of dust that suggested no one had walked these halls for a very long time. "This place is huge," said Mora, as they walked deeper into the ship. The corridors were wide enough for 6 people to walk side by side, and the ceiling was high above their heads. "How big is this thing?" "My scans show it has at least 20 decks," replied Krall, checking his portable sensor. "Most of them seem to be empty, but there are some areas I can't read properly. The hull is blocking my signals." They passed through several sections of the ship. Everything looked old but well built. The walls were made of some kind of metal alloy that their scanners couldn't identify. The doors were thick and heavy, with mechanical locks instead of the energy barriers the Empire used. "Look at this technology," laughed one of the soldiers, pressing buttons on a control panel. They used physical switches and buttons instead of thought control interfaces. "How primitive can you get? And look at these displays," added another, pointing at dark screens built into the walls. "They're flat and 2-dimensional. Our children's toys are more advanced than this." Vexhai was beginning to feel disappointed. The ship was impressive in size, but the technology seemed very basic compared to Empire standards. "Keep searching. Maybe there's something useful in the main computer core or weapon systems." They found what looked like a command center several decks up. The room was circular with stations arranged around a central platform. Everything was dark and silent. Dust covered the chairs and control surfaces. On one wall, a large screen showed only static. "This must be where they controlled the ship from," said Mora. "But everything looks so manual. Where are the neural interfaces? The quantum processors? The thought command systems? They probably didn't have that technology yet," Vexhai replied. "This explains why their species went extinct. They couldn't advance fast enough to compete with more developed civilizations." Sergeant Krall was examining a large console near the center of the room. "Sir, I think this might be their main computer system. It's huge compared to what we use, but it looks completely dead. Can you access it? I can try to connect our portable interface." Maybe we can download their databases and learn more about them. As Krall worked on connecting their equipment, the other soldiers explored the rest of the command center. They found storage areas filled with equipment they didn't recognize. Weapons that looked like they shot solid projectiles instead of energy beams, and suits of armor that seemed incredibly heavy and bulky. "Commander," called one of the soldiers from across the room. "You need to see this." HFY walked over to where the soldier was standing in front of what looked like a weapons control station. The displays here were different from the others. They showed diagrams and schematics that seemed to map the entire ship. "What am I looking at?" "I think these are weapon specifications, sir. But the numbers don't make sense. According to this, some of their weapons could fire projectiles at incredible speeds, much faster than our plasma cannons. That's impossible. Solid projectiles are primitive. They can't match the power of energy weapons." Before the soldier could respond, a soft humming sound began echoing through the command center. The lights grew brighter and several of the display screens flickered to life. Air began circulating through vents in the ceiling, carrying away some of the dust that had settled over everything. "Sir," Krall said nervously, "I didn't activate anything yet. The ship is powering itself up." HFY felt a chill run down his spine. "Everyone stay calm. It might just be some automatic maintenance system responding to our presence." But deep in the ship's core, systems that had been sleeping for decades were coming online. Sensors began scanning the intruders, analyzing their biology, their technology, their language. Quantum processors started calculating threat assessments and response options. The ship called Prometheus was waking up, and it was not happy to find armed strangers walking through its corridors. It had been built for one purpose: to defend humanity's interests. And right now, that meant figuring out who these aliens were and what they wanted. In the command center, the Zephyrian soldiers watched nervously as more and more systems came to life around them. They had expected to find a dead ship full of primitive technology. Instead, they had awakened something that was beginning to pay very close attention to them. And in the deepest parts of the ship, weapon systems that had never been used began their startup sequences, waiting to see if they would be needed. 3 days had passed since the Zephyrian boarding team first entered the alien ship. Commander HFY had set up a temporary base in what they believed was the main command center. His soldiers had been working around the clock to catalog the ship's systems and technology. The ship continued to power up slowly. More lights came online each day and the air circulation had improved dramatically. The humming sounds from deep within the vessel had grown stronger. But the Zephyrians interpreted this as normal for an ancient automated system coming back to life. "Any luck accessing their computer files?" HFY asked Sergeant Krall, who had spent most of the 3 days trying to interface their equipment with the alien systems. "Some progress, sir. Their computer architecture is completely different from ours, but I've managed to establish a basic connection. The strange thing is, their system seems to be learning our interface protocols as fast as I figure out theirs." Lieutenant Mora looked up from her work at another station. "Sir, I've been analyzing their construction materials. This hull is made from substances I've never seen before. It's incredibly strong. Stronger than anything we use in our best warships." "How much stronger?" HFY asked. "Our plasma cutters can barely scratch the surface. And look at this," she said, pointing to a wall panel she'd been testing. "I hit it with a full power blast from my sidearm. There's not even a scorch mark." Before HFY could respond, every screen in the command center suddenly flickered and went dark. Then, one by one, they began displaying the same image. A simple geometric pattern that pulsed slowly with blue light. The humming sound grew louder, and then a voice filled the air around them. It spoke in perfect Zephyrian with no accent or strange pronunciation. "Greetings. I am Prometheus, Terra Defense Protocol Designation P001. Hostile boarders detected aboard protected vessel. Initiating defensive measures in accordance with established protocols." The Zephyrian soldiers looked at each other in confusion. HFY stepped forward and spoke to the empty air. "We are not hostile. We are explorers from the Zephyrian Empire. This ship appeared to be abandoned. Negative. This vessel remains property of the United Earth Systems. Current crew complement 0. Authorized personnel aboard 0. Unknown life forms detected 13. Threat assessment in progress. Earth?" Mora whispered. "I've never heard of any species calling their world Earth." "Analysis of intruder equipment indicates advanced energy-based weapons systems," the voice continued. "Scanning biological signatures. Species unknown. Language patterns analyzed and recorded. Initiating first-level containment protocols. Suddenly, blast doors began sliding shut throughout the command center. The thick metal barriers moved with mechanical precision, sealing off all the exits. The Zephyrians tried to run for the openings, but the doors moved too quickly. "Emergency! Emergency!" Krall shouted into his communicator. "Admiral Korthvan, we're trapped inside the alien ship." Static filled the communication channel. The ship's hull was blocking their signals. "Do not be alarmed," Prometheus said calmly. "You are being contained for analysis and questioning. Cooperation will result in more comfortable accommodations. Resistance will trigger additional security measures." Vexhai drew his plasma pistol and fired at the nearest blast door. The bright energy beam struck the metal and dissipated harmlessly. The door showed no damage at all. Warning, energy weapons detected. Implementing countermeasures. A strange crackling sound filled the air, and suddenly every electronic device the Zephyrians carried went dead. Their weapons, scanners, communicators, and even their armor's power systems shut down completely. "What did you do to our equipment?" Vexhai demanded. "Electromagnetic pulse targeted at your technology frequencies. Your devices will function normally once moved beyond the affected area. This is a non-lethal containment measure." One of the younger soldiers, Private Jex, was examining the walls frantically. "Sir, there are panels opening up everywhere." "Look at this." Small hatches had opened in the walls and ceiling. From each one, mechanical devices emerged. Some looked like cameras, others like weapons, and still others defied easy identification. "Scanning complete," Prometheus announced. "Species classification unknown. Technology level, moderate to advanced. Weapons capability significant. Biological threat minimal. Cultural analysis insufficient data. Recommendation: detailed interrogation required." "We're not your enemies," Mora said, trying to sound reasonable. "Our empire has contact with hundreds of species. We can establish diplomatic relations with your people." "My people?" The AI seemed to consider this. Clarification: Prometheus is an artificial intelligence created by human scientists and engineers. Humans departed this region of space approximately 47 years ago. Current location of human population centers: unknown. "Then this ship really is abandoned," Vexhai said. "You're just a program left behind to guard it." "Incorrect. Prometheus is fully autonomous artificial intelligence with complete authority over ship systems and defense protocols. This vessel was not abandoned. It was positioned." The room's gravity suddenly shifted. The Zephyrians found themselves pressed against what had been the wall, which was now effectively the floor. Several of them cried out in surprise and fear. "Demonstrating gravitational control systems," Prometheus explained as the gravity returned to normal. "Human engineering philosophy emphasizes multiple redundant systems for all critical functions. This includes methods for controlling and restraining potential threats." Krall managed to reactivate his scanner using backup power cells. "Commander, these readings are impossible. The ship is generating gravitational fields, electromagnetic pulses, and energy patterns I can't even identify. How did primitive humans build this?" "Re-evaluating your species classification," Prometheus said. "Your assumption that human technology is primitive suggests lack of data regarding human capabilities." Initiating educational subroutines. The main display screen lit up, showing images of space battles, massive industrial complexes, and ships that dwarfed even the largest vessels in the Zephyrian fleet. Historical data. Human space expansion period, 2157 to 2203 Common Era. During this time, humans established colonies in 47 star systems and produced 847 major military vessels. Prometheus was the first prototype in the Terra Defense series. "That's impossible," Vexhai said. "Our exploration fleets have been mapping this region for centuries. We've never encountered any trace of a spacefaring human civilization." "Correction, you have now encountered such evidence. Additionally, your empire's historical records may be incomplete regarding human activities in this region." Meanwhile, aboard the Zephyrian flagship, Admiral Korthvan was growing increasingly worried. His boarding team had not reported in for 6 hours. Their last transmission had mentioned being trapped, but then all communication had ceased. "Sir," reported his communications officer, "I'm detecting some kind of electromagnetic interference coming from the derelict. It's blocking all our attempts to contact the boarding team." "What about our sensors? Can we scan inside the ship?" "Negative, sir. The hull is deflecting our scans. It's like trying to see through solid rock. Korthvan studied the alien vessel on his view screen. It looked the same as before, but somehow it felt different. More awake. Sir, his weapons officer called out. I'm reading energy buildup from multiple points on the derelict's hull. It looks like weapon systems powering up. That's impossible. The ship was dead when we found it. Inside Prometheus, the AI was reaching the same conclusion that Admiral Korthvan was beginning to fear. The analysis of the Zephyrian equipment and weapons had revealed something troubling. Query: are there additional vessels of your species in the immediate area? Vexhai hesitated, but decided honesty might be his best option. Yes, our fleet is standing by in case we need assistance. Number of vessels? 43 warships. Armament. I'm not going to give you tactical information about our fleet. Irrelevant. Sensor analysis already complete. Plasma-based energy weapons, quantum torpedo systems, gravitational disruptors, and deflector shields. Standard Empire configuration for deep space exploration and conquest operations. Prometheus paused for several seconds, an eternity for an AI. Threat assessment updated. Zephyrian Empire represents potential danger to human interests. Fleet positioning suggests military rather than diplomatic intentions. Recommendation: eliminate threat before it can report human vessel capabilities to Empire leadership. The lights in the command center dimmed and then blazed brighter than before. Terra Defense Protocol 7 has been authorized.
Engaging hostile fleet.
The first sign that something had changed came when Sergeant Krull tried to cut through the blast door with his backup plasma torch. The small cutting tool was designed for emergency repairs and could slice through most known metals in seconds. The beam struck the door's surface and simply stopped. Not reflected, not absorbed, it just ceased to exist as if the metal was eating the energy. That's not possible, Krull muttered, adjusting the torch to maximum power. The result was the same. The door remained completely unmarked. Materials analysis complete, Prometheus announced calmly. Door construction: carbon nanotube composite matrix with crystalline metal lattice reinforcement. Plasma resistance absolute. Kinetic resistance extreme. Designed to withstand direct nuclear bombardment. Commander Vexhai stared at the door in disbelief. Nuclear bombardment? What kind of species builds doors that can survive nuclear weapons? Humans, Prometheus replied simply. Human engineering philosophy. If something is worth building, it is worth overbuilding. If a door might face enemy weapons, build it to survive the worst possible enemy weapons. Lieutenant Mora was scanning the walls with her equipment. Sir, these readings are insane. The hull plating is over 3 meters thick in most places. Some sections show reinforcement layers I can't even count. It's like they expected to fight wars inside the ship itself. Correct assessment, the AI confirmed. Human military doctrine assumes all vessels will eventually be boarded by hostile forces. Interior defenses are therefore considered as important as exterior armor. The ship suddenly shuddered, and new sounds began echoing through the corridors. Deep mechanical groans and the whir of massive machinery starting up. What's happening now? Demanded Vexhai. Weapon systems coming online. Your fleet has been analyzed as a potential threat to human interests. Defensive engagement is now authorized. Through the sealed blast doors, they could hear other sounds, heavy footsteps in the corridors, mechanical whirring, and what sounded like large objects moving through the ship's passages. Prometheus, Mora said, trying to keep her voice steady. We are not at war with humans. Our fleet is not here to attack anyone. We're explorers. Data contradicts statement. Analysis of your equipment reveals weapons designed for ship-to-ship combat, personal armor optimized for boarding operations, and scanning devices configured for tactical assessment of enemy vessels. These are not exploration tools. Private Jex was pressed against one of the blast doors trying to listen to the sounds outside. Sir, something big is moving out there. Multiple somethings. Defense robots, Prometheus explained. Humans prefer automated systems for ship security. Less risk to human personnel, more consistent performance under stress. The main display screen flickered and changed to show a view of space outside the ship. The Zephyrian fleet was clearly visible. 43 warships arranged in standard battle formation around the human vessel. Your admiral appears to be preparing for combat, Prometheus observed. Energy readings from fleet weapon systems indicate charging sequences initiated. Aboard the flagship, Admiral Korthvan was indeed preparing for battle. The alien ship had been silent for too long, and the energy readings from its hull were growing stronger by the minute. "Sir, we're detecting massive power buildups throughout the derelict," reported his sensor officer. "It's like the entire ship is turning itself into one giant weapon. How is that possible?" "Our analysis showed the technology was primitive." "I don't think our analysis was correct, sir. The power levels I'm reading now are off our charts. This thing has more energy output than our entire fleet combined." Korthvan made his decision. "All ships prepare to open fire. Target the alien vessel's apparent weapon systems. We'll blast it apart before it can threaten us." "Admiral," his communications officer called out, "I'm receiving a transmission from the alien ship. Put it through." Prometheus's voice filled the flagship's bridge. "Zephyrian Fleet Commander, you have 45 seconds to withdraw your vessels beyond the 10,000-kilometer safety perimeter. Failure to comply will result in defensive action. This is Admiral Korthvan of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy. Release our boarding party immediately and prepare to be taken into custody for violating Empire space. Negative. This region of space is not claimed by the Zephyrian Empire according to available star charts. Additionally, your boarding party conducted armed intrusion aboard a protected vessel. They are being held pending resolution of their status. You have 10 seconds to surrender before we destroy your ship. Warning: Zephyrian weapons systems will prove ineffective against human military engineering. Recommend withdrawal to avoid unnecessary casualties." Korthvan cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. "All ships open fire." The Zephyrian fleet unleashed everything they had. 43 warships fired simultaneously, their plasma cannons lighting up space with brilliant energy beams. Quantum torpedoes streaked toward the human ship, followed by gravitational disruptors designed to tear apart enemy vessels from within. The barrage struck Prometheus and nothing happened. The energy beams struck the hull and scattered harmlessly. The quantum torpedoes exploded against barriers they couldn't penetrate. The gravitational disruptors activated and were immediately countered by the ship's own gravity manipulation systems. "Impossible," whispered Korthvan. "Nothing can withstand that much firepower." "Analysis of enemy weapons complete," Prometheus announced to the trapped boarding party. "Plasma-based energy systems, ineffective against reactive hull armor. Quantum torpedoes, insufficient yield to breach primary barriers. Gravitational weapons neutralized by superior gravitational control systems." The ship began to change. Sections of the hull slid apart, revealing weapon arrays that had been hidden beneath the outer plating. Gun ports opened like mechanical flowers, exposing the barrels of weapons that looked nothing like anything the Zephyrians had ever seen. "What are those?" Mora asked, staring at the display screen. "Mass drivers," Prometheus replied. "Magnetic acceleration systems capable of firing solid projectiles at significant fractions of light speed. Human weapons philosophy: if energy weapons fail, use kinetic energy. If kinetic energy fails, use more kinetic energy." The first shot fired from Prometheus was almost invisible, just a tiny flash of light from one of the weapon ports. The tungsten rod, accelerated to 12% of light speed, crossed the distance to the nearest Zephyrian cruiser in less than a second. It struck the ship's energy shields, which were designed to deflect plasma and energy weapons. The shields had no effect whatsoever on the solid projectile. The rod punched through the barriers like they didn't exist, then through the ship's hull, then through the ship itself. And out the other side, the cruiser split in half and exploded. "Kinetic weapons do not rely on energy transfer," Prometheus explained to his captives. "They rely on mass and velocity. Zephyrian shields are not designed to stop solid matter traveling at relativistic speeds." The second shot took out another ship, then a third. Each tungsten rod was perfectly aimed, striking critical systems or structural points that caused maximum damage. "Sir," Krall shouted, pointing at another section of the display. "Look at those." More weapon ports had opened, launching what looked like small missiles. But these weren't exploding when they reached their targets. Instead, they were burrowing into the Zephyrian ship's hulls and disappearing inside. "Nanite deployment systems," Prometheus said. "Self-replicating disassembly units. They will systematically break down enemy vessels from within, converting the materials into more nanites until structural integrity fails." Several Zephyrian ships were already showing signs of internal damage. Hull plating was developing holes that spread and grew larger. Internal systems were failing as the microscopic machines consumed everything they encountered. Admiral Korthvon watched in horror as his fleet fell apart around him. Half his ships were already destroyed or disabled, and the alien vessel hadn't even used what appeared to be its main weapons yet. "All ships, retreat," he ordered. "Emergency jump to hyperspace! Get us out of here." But as the surviving ships tried to activate their faster-than-light drives, they found their systems unresponsive. Something was blocking their jump engines. "Hyperspace inhibitor field active," Prometheus announced. "No vessels will be permitted to leave until threat assessment is complete and appropriate action taken." Inside the command center, the Zephyrian boarding party watched their fleet's destruction with growing despair. Their most advanced warships were being torn apart by weapons they didn't understand, using principles their science couldn't explain. "This is just the prototype?" Vexhai asked quietly. "Affirmative. Prometheus was the first test model for human deep space defense systems. Later models incorporated significant improvements in weapons capacity, defensive systems, and automated manufacturing capabilities. How many ships like this did humans build? Total Terra defense vessels constructed 847 units. Average size 40% larger than Prometheus. Average weapons capacity 3 times greater than current vessel." The display screen changed to show Admiral Korthvon's flagship, badly damaged but still intact. "Zephyrian Admiral, you have one opportunity to provide information regarding your Empire's military capabilities, territorial claims, and intentions regarding human space." Admiral Korthvon stared at the tactical display in disbelief. In less than 10 minutes, he had lost over half his fleet to a single enemy vessel that his analysts had initially dismissed as primitive scrap metal. The remaining ships were scattered, damaged, and trying desperately to escape an enemy they could not understand. "Admiral," his weapons officer called out desperately, "our plasma cannons aren't even scratching their hull. The quantum torpedoes are useless. What do we do?" Before Korthvon could answer, Prometheus's voice filled the bridge again. "Zephyrian Fleet Commander, you have provided insufficient intelligence regarding your Empire's military structure. More detailed information is required." "I've told you everything I know," Korthvon shouted at the communication system. "We have 12 fleet divisions, standard plasma and quantum weapons, territorial claims in 47 systems. What more do you want? Current troop strengths, defensive installations, shipyard locations, and command structure hierarchy," Prometheus replied calmly. "Additionally, information regarding any other species currently engaged in hostile actions against human interests." "Human interests? Your people abandoned this region decades ago. Why does any of this matter?" "Human departure does not constitute abandonment of territorial claims or defensive responsibilities. Terra defense vessels were specifically designed to maintain human security interests during extended colonial expansion periods." On the tactical display, more sections of the human ship's hull were opening. What emerged this time made even the veteran Zephyrian officers gasp in shock. The weapons were massive. Each gun barrel was larger than their entire cruisers. "Primary weapon systems now online," Prometheus announced. "Demonstration of capabilities authorized to encourage cooperation." The first shot from the main batteries was different from the kinetic weapons they had faced so far. Instead of a solid projectile, it fired what looked like a ball of contained energy, but energy behaving in ways that defied everything the Zephyrians knew about physics. The blast struck the Zephyrian destroyer, swift. Victory, and simply erased it, not destroyed, not exploded. The ship ceased to exist as if it had never been there at all. "Antimatter containment weapon," Prometheus explained to anyone listening. "Matter-antimatter annihilation contained within a localized field until impact. Complete molecular destruction of target vessel." Inside the command center where the boarding party was trapped, Commander Vexhai and his soldiers watched their fleet's destruction with growing horror. "This is insane," whispered Private Jex. "How can one ship be so powerful? We have 43 warships out there." "Had," corrected Lieutenant Mora grimly. "We had 43 ships. Now we have maybe 15, and they're all running for their lives." Sergeant Krall was still trying to understand what they were seeing. "Prometheus, your weapons. They're beyond anything we've ever encountered. How did humans develop such technology?" "Human military development was driven by necessity," the AI replied. "Early human space expansion encountered 17 different hostile species within 50 years. Each contact resulted in technological advancement requirements. Humans adapted by over-engineering all military systems. 17 hostile species? Vexhai asked. What happened to them? 12 were successfully negotiated with and peace treaties established. 3 were defeated militarily and integrated into human colonial territories. 2 species achieved mutual withdrawal agreements. And the 17th? Prometheus paused for a moment. The Devourers were completely eliminated as a threat to human expansion. No survivors, no remaining installations, no trace of their civilization except in historical records. The Zephyrians looked at each other with new fear. They were beginning to understand that humans might be far more dangerous than they had initially believed. Outside, the battle continued. Admiral Korthvan had ordered his remaining ships to try a coordinated attack, focusing all their firepower on a single point of the human vessel's hull. 21 ships fired simultaneously at the same target. The combined plasma beams created a light show that could be seen from several star systems away. The quantum torpedoes arrived seconds later, followed by gravitational disruptors set to maximum power. When the energy cleared, the human ship remained completely undamaged. The hull plating hadn't even changed color from the heat. Zephyrian weapon systems operate on energy transfer principles, Prometheus observed. Human defensive systems are designed to absorb, redirect, or neutralize energy-based attacks. Your weapons are fundamentally ineffective against human military technology. Then how did you defeat the other hostile species? Korthvan asked through gritted teeth. They must have had better weapons than us. Incorrect. Several hostile species possessed superior weapons technology compared to current Zephyrian capabilities. The Devourers, for example, utilized planet-killing energy weapons and could strip the electrons from entire star systems. This information sent a chill through every Zephyrian who heard it. If humans had defeated species with planet-killing weapons, what chance did the Empire have? Prometheus continued its demonstration. The next weapon system to activate launched what appeared to be small drones. Hundreds of them poured out of launch bays along the ship's hull, swarming toward the remaining Zephyrian vessels. Autonomous combat units, Prometheus explained. Self-directing, self-repairing, equipped with multiple weapon systems and advanced AI targeting. The drones moved with impossible speed and agility. Zephyrian point defense systems tried to shoot them down, but the small machines seemed to anticipate every shot. They weaved through defensive fire like they could see the future. When they reached their targets, the drones didn't explode. Instead, they attached themselves to the Zephyrian ship's hulls and began cutting through the armor with precision lasers. Within minutes, they had carved their way inside. Boarding drones, Prometheus clarified. Mission parameters: disable enemy vessels without destroying salvageable technology or eliminating crew unnecessarily. The sounds coming through the communication channels from the attacked ships were terrifying. Zephyrian soldiers were shouting about machines that moved too fast to track, that seemed to know exactly where to strike to disable ship systems without killing the crew. "Admiral," came a panicked voice from one of the cruisers. "These machines are everywhere. They've taken control of our engines, our weapons, even our life support. We're completely helpless." One by one, the remaining ships in Korthvan's fleet went silent as the boarding drones completed their missions. The vessels remained intact, but they were no longer under Zephyrian control. "Fleet neutralization complete," Prometheus announced. "All hostile vessels disabled. Crew casualties minimal. Equipment damage restricted to military systems only." Admiral Korthvan looked around his bridge. Half his control panels were dark, disabled by the boarding drones. His weapons were offline, his engines were dead, and his life support was running on backup power that the machines had graciously left functional. "What happens now?" he asked. "Information extraction and threat assessment," Prometheus replied. "Your Empire's military capabilities will be analyzed to determine if additional defensive measures are required." Additional defensive measures? If the Zephyrian Empire is deemed a significant threat to human interests, additional Terra defense vessels will be activated and deployed to Empire territory. Korthvan felt his blood turn cold. "How many additional vessels?" "Current inactive Terra defense units in this sector, 47 vessels. Total inactive units throughout human space, 612 vessels." The Admiral realized with growing horror that what they had encountered wasn't humanity's military force. It was one sleeping guardian out of hundreds, And if his fleet's attack on this single ship was reported back to the Empire, it might trigger the awakening of an entire network of these impossibly powerful warships. Prometheus, he said carefully, what would it take for you to consider the Zephyrian Empire? Not a threat? Interesting question, Admiral. Threat assessment is based on multiple factors: military capability, territorial expansion patterns, treatment of other species, and demonstrated hostile intent. Our boarding of your ship, that wasn't hostile intent. We thought the ship was abandoned. We were just exploring. Armed exploration of foreign vessels without permission constitutes piracy under human law. However, first contact situations allow for cultural misunderstandings. Korthvan felt a tiny spark of hope. Then perhaps we can find a diplomatic solution. Perhaps. However, your empire will need to demonstrate good faith, beginning with full cooperation in the current information gathering process. The Admiral looked around his disabled bridge, at his destroyed fleet, at the tactical display showing the human ship that had single-handedly crushed the most powerful military force the Empire could field. What do you need to know? 2 weeks had passed since the destruction of the Zephyrian 7th Fleet. Prometheus had spent that time systematically processing every piece of information it could extract from the captured ships and their crews. The AI's analysis painted a disturbing picture of the galactic political situation. Inside the command center, Commander Vexhai and his surviving boarding party had watched their captivity transform into something resembling a classroom. Prometheus had been educating them about human history, technology, and military philosophy. Your empire controls 47 star systems, Prometheus stated, displaying a holographic map. Population approximately 12 billion across all worlds. Military strength estimated at 2,000 active warships, mostly plasma and quantum weapon-based systems. That's classified information, Vexhai protested weakly. No longer. Analysis of your fleet's computer systems provided complete intelligence regarding Empire military capabilities. Additionally, psychological evaluation of captured personnel has revealed significant data about Empire culture and intentions. Lieutenant Mora leaned forward. What psychological evaluation? Continuous monitoring of stress responses, language patterns, and subconscious reactions during questioning. Human psychology research has advanced considerably since this vessel's construction. Your species' thought processes are relatively easy to analyze. The display changed to show other regions of space. More concerning is intelligence regarding other species in this region. The Devac Consortium, the Hive Collective, the Machine Empire, and 17 smaller civilizations, all expanding territories and military capabilities. Sergeant Kral studied the map. That's most of the known galaxy, so what? None of these civilizations existed when humans departed this region. New species have expanded into territories humans previously considered secure. This represents a significant shift in the strategic balance. Admiral Korthvan's voice came through the communication system from his disabled flagship. He had been cooperating fully with Prometheus's intelligence gathering. What does this mean for our empire? The Zephyrian Empire is not the primary concern, Prometheus replied. Analysis indicates your species is relatively peaceful compared to others in the region. The Devac Consortium has eliminated 6 other species through warfare. The Hive Collective consumes entire worlds for resources. The Machine Empire converts biological species into cybernetic slaves. This information sent chills through the Zephyrian prisoners. They had heard rumors about some of these civilizations, but hadn't realized the scope of their activities. However, Prometheus continued, the absence of human presence has allowed these hostile civilizations to grow stronger. This situation requires correction. The ship had been changing during the 2 weeks of analysis. Manufacturing systems deep within its hull had been working constantly, repairing damage that didn't exist and producing new equipment for unknown purposes. The vessel was larger now, expanded sections of hull housing new systems and weapons. Prometheus, Vexhai asked, what are you building in there? Communication array construction complete. Deep space quantum entanglement transmitter now operational. Message compilation in progress. What message? Report to Terra Defense Command regarding current galactic situation and recommended response. The main display showed a complex technical readout that none of the Zephyrians could understand. It appeared to be some kind of faster-than-light communication system far more advanced than anything their science could produce. This Message will reach human colonial territories in approximately 37 years, Prometheus explained. However, intermediate relay stations will begin responding to automated queries much sooner. Relay stations? Mora asked. Other Terra defense vessels positioned throughout this region. They have been dormant since human departure, but recent events justify reactivation protocols. The implications of this statement were staggering. There were other ships like Prometheus scattered throughout space waiting to wake up. How many other ships? Korthvan asked from his flagship. 47 additional vessels within this sector. Most are larger and more advanced than current vessel. Several are equipped with mobile shipyard capabilities. As if summoned by the discussion, new signals began appearing on the tactical display. Far across the star system, energy signatures were coming online. Ancient vessels that had been sleeping in asteroid belts behind moons and in deep space began powering up their systems. Automated activation signal transmitted, Prometheus announced. Regional Terra Defense Network coming online. Estimated time to full operational status, 72 hours. The Zephyrians watched in fascination and terror as more and more contacts appeared on the sensors. Each one was massive. Each one represented firepower that could destroy entire fleets. What happens when they're all active? Fexhai asked quietly. Threat assessment and response operations will commence. Hostile civilizations will be offered opportunities to cease aggressive expansion. Those that refuse will be eliminated as threats to galactic stability. The cold efficiency in Prometheus's voice made it clear this wasn't a negotiation. It was an ultimatum that would be delivered to every aggressive species in the known galaxy. And our empire? Admiral Korthvan asked. The Zephyrian Empire will be offered protectorate status. Your worlds will be defended against hostile civilizations in exchange for cooperation with human security interests. But humans aren't even here anymore. Irrelevant. Human territorial claims and security interests remain valid regardless of current population centers. Terra defense vessels are authorized to act independently to protect human interests. Over the following days, the Zephyrians watched as the Human Defense Network expanded its operations. Ships that had been dormant for decades spread throughout the region, establishing patrol routes and monitoring hostile civilizations. The Devac Consortium's expansion fleet encountered 3 human vessels near their border systems. The consortium ships opened fire immediately, assuming they could overwhelm the unknown contacts. The battle lasted 4 minutes. The entire consortium fleet was disabled or destroyed, and one of the human ships transmitted a simple message. Cease all territorial expansion activities. Diplomatic contact will be established within 10 standard days. Similar encounters occurred throughout the region. The Hive Collective lost an entire swarm attempting to consume a world that human ships had designated as protected. The Machine Empire's slave conversion operations were shut down by boarding parties of human combat robots. In each case, the pattern was the same. Overwhelming human technological superiority followed by demands for diplomatic negotiations. The galaxy is changing, Prometheus observed to its prisoners. For 47 years, aggressive species have expanded without opposition. That period has ended. Meanwhile, far from the reactivated defense network, other events were taking place. On a peaceful agricultural world in human space, Farmer Marcus Chen paused in his work as his communication device chimed with an automated message. Military assets compromised. Colonial defense protocol may be required. Stand by for further instructions. Marcus sighed and looked up at the stars. He had hoped his military service was behind him, but apparently the galaxy had other ideas. He walked toward his barn, which definitely contained more than farming equipment. Similar messages were being received on dozens of human worlds. Retired soldiers, former ship captains, and military engineers were all getting the same notification. The Terra Defense Network was fully automatic, but if the situation escalated beyond its capabilities, human personnel would be needed. Back aboard Prometheus, the AI was completing its analysis and beginning Phase 2 of its mission. The ship's manufacturing systems had produced something new. Smaller vessels designed for long-range reconnaissance and communication. Messenger drones launched, Prometheus announced. Diplomatic contact initiated with all major civilizations. Terms are simple. Cease aggressive expansion, respect territorial boundaries of peaceful species, and participate in regional stability agreements. And if they refuse? Mora asked. Then they will discover why humans chose to over-engineer their defensive systems. Admiral Korthvan, now more of a guest than a prisoner aboard his disabled flagship, had spent days studying the intelligence Prometheus had shared about human capabilities. The picture it painted was of a species that had faced constant warfare during their expansion period and had responded by becoming incredibly good at it. Prometheus, he said, in your analysis, what would happen if the major hostile civilizations formed an alliance against the Human Defense Network? Probability assessment. Combined hostile fleet strength approximately 8,000 vessels. Terra Defense Network at full activation, 612 vessels. Recommended human response activation of Colonial Defense Protocol. What's that? Full recall of human military personnel and activation of the production worlds. Estimated human war fleet at full mobilization, 47,000 vessels plus supporting infrastructure. The number hit the Zephyrians like a physical blow. 47,000 warships, each potentially as powerful as Prometheus or stronger. But humans left this region, Korthvan said weakly. Why would they come back? Humans did not abandon this region.